the Jubilee is coming. Oh, the Jubilee is coming.
Reading from Isaiah 13. The oracle concerning Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw. On a bare hill raise a signal, cry aloud to them, wave the hand for them to enter the gates of the nobles. I myself have commanded my consecrated ones, have summoned my mighty men to execute my anger, my proudly exulting ones. Hark! A tumult on the mountains, as of a great multitude. Hark! An uproar of kingdoms, of nations gathering together. The Lord of hosts is mustering a host for battle. They come from a distant land, from the end of the heavens. The Lord and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole earth. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. As destruction from the Almighty it will come. Therefore all hands will be feeble, and every man's heart will melt, and they will be dismayed. Pangs and agony will seize them. They will be in anguish, like a woman in travail. They will look aghast at one another. Their faces will be aflame. Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel with wrath and fierce anger, to make the earth a desolation, and to destroy its sinners from it. For the stars of the heavens and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark at its rising, and the moon will not shed its light. I will punish the world for its evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will put an end to the pride of the arrogant, and lay low the haughtiness of the ruthless. I will make men more rare than fine gold, and mankind than the gold of Ophir. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken out of its place, at the wrath of the Lord of hosts, in the day of his fierce anger. And like a hunted gazelle, or like sheep with none to gather them, every man will turn to his own people, and every man will flee to his own land. Whoever is found will be thrust through, and whoever is caught will fall by the sword. Their infants will be dashed in pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be plundered, and their wives ravished. Behold, I am stirring up the Medes against them, who have no regard for silver and do not delight in gold. Their bows will slaughter the young men. They will have no mercy on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes will not pity children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the splendor and pride of the Chaldeans, will be like Sodom and Gomorrah when God overthrew them. It will never be inhabited or dwelt in for all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there. No shepherds will make their flocks lie down there. But wild beasts will lie down there, and its houses will be full of howling creatures. There ostriches will dwell, and there satyrs will dance. Hyenas will cry in its towers, and jackals in the pleasant palaces. Its time is close at hand, and its days will not be prolonged. Well, that's pretty intense. Good old Bible. Nothing like the Bible to get us all fired up. So that's a lot of doom and gloom, right? Don't we hate that? Wouldn't we like some nice, touchy-feely New Age spirituality instead, you know? It's fine. You're doing great, you know? Right? We're doing great, right? I think so. I think everything is fine. Marge, what do you think? No, things are not fine. We live in a world of artificial dinosaurs that prowl, searching for the holy to make them unwhole. And this is not new news. We once lived in Eden, and Eden was merely Africa, because we evolved from apes. And apes can live in Africa. They still do. Apes can live in a few places on the earth, typically places with like dense jungle, like either the Amazon or India, Southeast Asia, or Africa, typically places which are equatorial. And so what the Garden of Eden myth represents is how man left Eden because man left the lush garden of Africa to go explore the planet. And when we went out of Africa, we left our hearts in Africa, and we left God in Africa. Because when you try to survive in places like northern Russia, you don't do it by yourself with just your heart. You have to have a plan. You have to have a group. You have to have group cohesion. You have to have a leader. You have to have people following that leader. You have to have a schedule. You have to have agriculture. You have to plant and harvest at specific times. It's not quite as simple as living in sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm not saying living in sub-Saharan Africa is... I'm not trying to say that it is wonderful and glorious and the rest of the world is garbage. What I'm trying to say is that when we left Africa, we left a world that was designed for us so that we could be heart-centered. And we said, no, I don't like this nature thing. It's too much. It's demanding. It's telling me what to do. I want to be in charge. So I'm going to Europe. And people are like, why do you want to go there? It's a shithole. And, Joe Antichrist was like, hey, I'm going and I'm going to make it work. And so Joe Antichrist and his followers, they went to Europe and they went to northern Russia. And eventually they conquered many, many difficult lands with like deserts and northern climates with vicious winters, and they developed tools and technology as a means of surviving in those climates. And that's their choice. That's totally their choice. And I have grown up in this life, in previous lifetimes, in that technological world. But see, when we think of religion, we tend to think of these big sort of spiritual leaders that appeared throughout history. We think of Moses, we think of Jesus, we think of Krishna, we think of Zoroaster. And what these people represented was God, however you want to, God is infinite, so I'm not trying to just say it's one guy. But God recognized that we evolved in Africa so we could develop into something greater in the cocoon of that lush world. And then when we left, it became substantially more difficult to spiritually evolve like we were supposed to do. And there was only so much time that we had to evolve from apes that just figured out, oh, I am an ape and my name is Ted, to I understand that God is everywhere and I have evolved to a spiritual being on like a semi-angelic level, and therefore I'm able to live in a higher reality. Okay, that was the plan. But people said, fuck that, we're going to the desert because, I don't know, the sand is really nice. And so God sent warnings as Moses or as Krishna or as Zoroaster or even as Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan in the Americas, and said, hey, so if you're not going to live in Africa and you're going to decide to depend on your mind very strongly, well, it can work, but there's only a way that you can do that. And this way is specific to this climate, and we'll call it Islam. This way is specific to this climate, and we will call that the Mayan teachings. The name of it is escaping me. Or here's another teaching, and we will call it the teachings of Jesus. And those were specific to that culture, which was necessary to survive in that climate. We made a deal with the devil when we decided, fuck you, God, I know you made this nice, like, beautiful place for us, but we don't have the control that we want, so we're going to go in these other places where there's not as much nature, and we're going to be gods in those places. And God said, well, you know, like, you do realize you're in this kind of incubator, and that in 70,000 years or something, I'm going to take off the shield, and then you're going to have to defend yourself, and you should be totally like strong spiritual beings by that point in order to live without that shield. But if you don't evolve to that and you just decide to focus on building big monuments and cities and being like these little gods of dirt on earth, well, you're not going to have a fucking good time whenever that shield comes off. And you know what? It's going to feel like wrath, and it's going to feel like anger when it happens, and maybe we'll write a book called Revelation about it. Or Isaiah. So we live in the end times, and it's just reality. It's just reality. If you don't put in the spiritual work to strengthen your soul connection and get close with the intuitive voice that's in your heart, which is the voice of God, which was given to humans as a friend to help us to develop and be closer and more like God. If you don't listen to that voice and you listen to the ego, the head, the logic, and you just give yourself over to your mind, you become estranged from your heart and you become weak in soul, detached from soul, lost in duality, and you end up hating nature and really wanting to destroy it. And that's why there was always a timer that was set to expire, and it's expired. And the only thing that can save you is yourself. On some level, I've already let go, and these final videos are me saying my goodbye letter to a world that I've tried to say, wake up to. I've tried to ring alarm bells, probably in some, I don't know, I understand that God asked me to do such a thing in exchange for a path to personal spiritual power so that I could survive going forward. And that also I have a long history on this planet, and I'm part of the team that is meant to give people a last chance. These people came recently, like Jesus and Moses and Krishna, and these people, they came to say, hey, you are quickly approaching a cliff, better get some wings. Better get some wings.
somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole. Oh, somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole.